How to predict divorce with 95% accuracy. Just hearing that, how does it land on your chest? Does it sound scary or strangely comforting? Because if you can predict divorce with that level of accuracy, you can also predict safety, passion, and peace with almost the same precision. And that's what the Prestige Marriage Blueprint is really about. Not fear, but power. Now, I'm not pulling that number out of thin air. For decades, researchers like Dr. John Gottman, they have run intensive studies on thousands of couples, tracking their heart rates, their words, even their facial expressions from just a few minutes of conversation. They've been able to predict divorce with over 90% accuracy. At the same time, in the real world, divorce is still incredibly common. The CDC reports hundreds of thousands of divorces each year in the US alone, about 674,000 in 2022, roughly 2.4 divorces for every 1,000 people. Some estimates put the lifetime probability of divorce around 40% or more. So when I say 95% accurate, I'm not talking about superstition. I'm talking about patterns that are as predictable as gravity. Once you know what to look for, then you know. All right. So let me break this down from start and land to something more important. Mark and Sarah, two good jobs, two kids, no major money problems. On paper, they look like the couple people point to and say they're doing it right. But when Mark came to me, he described their home like this. It feels like a cold, empty house. We're not screaming, we're just gone. Sarah, on the other hand, felt completely defeated. She said, "We're good people. We were raised right, but I don't recognize us anymore." Some of you feel that in your bones. That quiet, private panic. We're not yelling. We're not throwing things. But something is dying, and I don't know how to stop it. Let me crush the first myth right now. People love to say, "It takes two to tango." Sounds cute. It's also one of the most disempowering ideas in marriage. Let me explain. It does not take two people to start healing a marriage. It takes one empowered person to stop the cycle of destruction. Please take that to the bag. One person who decides, "I will not keep pouring poison into this system. I will not keep dancing this same dance." It takes one person who decides those simple lines. The rest of this conversation is for that one person. If that's you, stay with me. Now, here's the promise. Today, I'm going to give you the Prestige Marriage Blueprint's 95% accurate diagnostic tool. By the end of this, you'll be able to look at your relationship and say with uncomfortable honesty, are we quietly building a future we'll be proud of? Or are we walking straight toward divorce and just calling it normal? Let's talk about what actually predicts divorce. Myth number 2 says financial problems, cheating, irreconcilable differences. That's what breaks marriages. Absolutely false. That's what gets written on the divorce papers. Those are the headlines. That's what everybody's branding around. But the research is clear. What shows up in court is usually just the final explosion. The real damage starts years before, in tiny moments of contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and emotional disconnection. Affairs, money blow-ups, we just grew apart. Those are symptoms. They are the fever, they're not the virus. So what is the virus? In the Prestige Marriage Blueprint, we start with 2 core diagnoses. First, pride. Not the loud, arrogant kind. No, we're talking about the good person's pride. It sounds like I was raised right. This is our culture. I know what a good husband or wife should do. My way is the manual. Our parents did it the right way. Yes, the good guy pride. On the surface, it looks moral, stable, responsible, but inside the marriage, it's deadly. Because this pride does 3 things. It convinces you there's nothing new to learn. It frames your partner's complaint as an attack on your character, and it makes every conversation about who is right instead of what will bring peace and happiness. You might even say it's not about happiness, but that was Mark. He wasn't a bad man, but his inner script said, I'm the responsible one. If she's unhappy, she's ungrateful and unrealistic. So when Sarah said, I feel alone, he didn't hear a request. He heard a verdict that says, you're failing as a man. And his walls shut up. Second core diagnosis, mismanaged expectations. This one is simple, but it destroys people. You hand your partner a mental checklist they never agreed to, then punish them when they don't follow it. A good wife should, a real husband always, a real man would. But here's the twist. You never actually say the list out loud. You just react when they fail those tests. You withdraw, you roll your eyes, drop a sarcastic line, use sex as a scoreboard. That was Sarah. She had a quiet, detailed list of what a present husband looks like. Mark had never seen the list. He just kept failing tests he didn't know he was taking. And every unnoticed effort, every missed bid for connection, every rolled eye deposited a little more poison into their emotional system. This is where the 95% kicks in. Researchers found that stable, happy couples still fight, but during conflict, they maintain about 5 positive interactions for every negative one. That could be 1, a gentle touch, 2, a curious question, 3, a small joke, 4, a year that makes sense. In couples headed to divorce, the ratio drops to about 1-to-1 or worse. Now, layer that ratio on top of our 2 diagnoses, pride and mismanaged expectations, then add what I call the core poisons, the 5 that quietly destroy safety. In Mark and Sarah's house, the poisons looked like this. Poison number 1, shaming. This sounds like you're too sensitive, you're never satisfied, or other people would be grateful for what you have. That's not feedback, that's character assassination with a smile. Poison number 2, insult. Not just name calling, but those small digs. Here we go again. You're ridiculous. You always make everything dramatic. Insults tell your partner the feelings are a problem, not the situation. Poison number 6, guilt. This is when love becomes a courtroom. Oh, after everything I've done, you still complain? You're going to do this to the kids? Instead of owning your choices, you weaponize sacrifice to control the other person. Poison number 8 and 9, sarcasm and condescension. That little eye roll, the slow clap, the wow, amazing idea as usual. It sounds clever, but it's emotional napalm. Sarcasm often hides feelings of hurt or fear, but it sends one message: I'm above you. Poison number 10, obsession with being right, powered by discrete logic. This is when you pick apart words like a lawyer. You win every argument by logic, but you lose your partner's heart. You treat emotional pain like a debate you need to dominate. Watching Mark and Sarah in a normal evening tells you everything. Sarah would say, you've been on your phone all night. I miss you. And Mark would respond, I was working. Someone has to pay these bills. So she feels dismissed and shamed. That's poison 1 and 2. She responds with sarcasm, hero of the family as always. That's poison number 8 and 9. Mark feels attacked, so he retreats into discrete logic. I was on my phone for 27 minutes. You were scrolling Instagram too. Don't exaggerate. Now the conversation has shifted from I miss you to prove your feelings with data. He might technically be right, but the marriage loses. Meanwhile, their bodies are reacting, heart rates climbing, adrenaline kicking in. Research shows that once your heart rate passes around 100 beats per minute in conflict, the brain goes into survival mode. You literally become worse at listening, empathy, and problem solving. So the poisons keep pouring, the ratio slips, the home gets colder, even if no one is smashing plates. And here's the dangerous part. Because Mark and Sarah are good people, they don't imagine they could be the ones headed toward divorce. This is where myth number 3 walks in. There's no manual for marriage. Everyone just figures it out. Do what works for you. Absolutely not. There are patterns. No, there are patterns. There's a map. And if it was working, no one would complain, right? Decades of research have shown that certain behaviors, especially contempt, that deep sense of superiority, are the simplest, biggest predictors of divorce. You lace enough shaming, insult, sarcasm, guilt, and I'm always right through your days, and it doesn't matter how many vacations or weekly dates you take, the nervous system of that relationship will start to pull away to survive. The Prestige Marriage Blueprint is simply a way of turning those patterns into a manual. So what happened to Mark and Sarah, you ask? At first, they both wanted to point the finger, right? Mark said, if she would just stop nagging, I would be more affectionate. Sarah said, if you'd just be present, I wouldn't be so mean. So we did something different. We took the spotlight off the marriage and placed it on their individual self and purpose, about the GPS of their lives. Who are you when nobody needs you? What kind of man or woman do you want to be, regardless of how your partner is performing or showing up? What is your bigger mission spiritually, emotionally, socially, outside of just keeping the house running? As they did that, something shifted. Mark started to see that his good guy pride wasn't noble, it was fear. He was terrified of being seen as inadequate, so he defended instead of listening. He began to say, you're right, I did check out tonight, so what's up, babe? Sarah realized that guilt and shaming were her way of clinging to control in a life where she felt invisible. She began to replace lines like, you're never here for me with, when you stay on your phone all evening, I feel abandoned. Or better, I need 20 minutes of face-to-face time with you tonight, babe. Can we do that? Same pain, new language, new power dynamic. They also started deliberately stacking positive moments. Tiny beads for connection, a quick touch on the shoulder, a thank you for dinner, a real question like, how did that feel? Slowly, their ratio shifted. They moved from one positive interaction for every negative towards 5-to-1 magic ratio that strong couples maintain even during conflict. Did this instantly fix everything? Of course not. But the poison levels dropped. The home warmed up. Suddenly, the big issues, money, sex, parenting, were no longer constant wars. They became problems two allies were facing together, because the real poison was never money or sex. It was guilt and shaming. Once they dealt with those and aligned with their individual self and purpose, the symptoms began to fade. So let's bring it to you and the 95% diagnostic. If you want to predict divorce with brutal clarity, don't start with, have we ever talked about divorce? Start with this. How strong is my good person pride? Do I believe there's nothing new to learn about loving this person? How many invisible expectations am I punishing my partner for? How much shaming, insult, sarcasm, guilt, and I'm always right? How much of those are you allowing to flow through your daily life? What's our ratio of positive to negative interactions during ordinary disagreements? If the poisons are high, the pride is rigid, expectations are unspoken, and the ratio is close to 1-to-1 or worse, the probability of divorce skyrockets even if no one has said the word divorce out loud yet. That's your uncomfortable gift. You can see it coming years in advance. Now you need to act quickly. You can stop this cycle today. You can decide as one person, I will step out of this pattern. I'll learn to influence intentionally, not manipulate. I'll become emotionally intelligent enough to hold both my pain and their humanity at the same time. But predicting divorce and preventing divorce are two totally different skill sets. Knowing the poisons is one thing. Detoxing them in real time with the real human who triggers you while kids are screaming and bills are due is another thing entirely. That's why we built our premium coaching program, to give you a precise, powerful strategy for your specific pattern. Not generic advice, but these are your main poisons. These are your pride scripts. Here's your exact communication plan, your boundaries, the seduction strategy to reattract safety and respect into this marriage. Because an empowered man or woman is not begging their partner to change. They change the system by changing themselves calmly, consistently, strategically. So let me leave you with this. When you look at Mark and Sarah's story, and maybe even your own, what do you think each person and even their friends, family, and community could have done differently before it got this bad, and why? This is Ola Akman of Prestige, your favorite relationship and marriage coach. If you enjoyed this, smash that like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Be a part of the Prestige family. My wife Lola and I have written 2 powerful books, Get My Marriage Back and Number 1 Red Flag, yours free at manofprestige.com. For personal coaching, send me a WhatsApp request for consultation to +1 732 305 8577. Stay tuned for more. Your journey to love and prestige starts here.